Well, good morning, LifePoint. We are so glad that you have joined us this morning. Will you please stand with us as we sing songs of worship? Gotta dance through the darkness, sing through the fire, praise when it don't make sense. Sometimes you've gotta stare down the giant, worship from the lion's den. Shout it from the mountain, louder in the valley, trusting that he's gonna get you there. Sometimes you've gotta welcome the wonder, wait for the answer, worship with your hands in the air. I'll praise you anywhere. Praise, give him praise in the highest praise. Give him praise in the highest. He is worthy. Yes, he is worthy of all of the praise. Sometimes you've got to praise in the prison, cry out to heaven, shout until the doors swing wide. Sometimes you've got to stand on your shackles, brave in the battle, worship with your hands held high. I'll praise you anywhere. Give him praise in the highest praise. Give him praise in the highest. He is worthy. Yes, he is worthy of all of the praise. Give him praise in the highest praise. Give him praise in the highest. He is worthy. Yes, he is worthy of all of the praise. Faithful all my life, blessings day and night, countless reasons why I'll praise you anywhere. Every promise kept, goodness every step, each and every breath, I'll praise you anywhere. Faithful all my life, blessings day and night, countless reasons why I'll praise you anywhere. Every promise kept, goodness every step, each and every breath, I'll praise you anywhere. Give him praise in the highest praise. Give him praise in the highest. He is worthy. Yes, he is worthy of all of the praise. Give him praise in the highest praise. Give him praise in the highest. He is worthy. Yes, he is worthy of all of the praise. Let's give him praise this morning.
Go ahead and have a seat, guys. There we go. Hey, my name is Sarah. If we have not met yet, it is a pleasure to welcome you here this morning. And if it is your first time here, I want to say a special thank you for you coming here today and joining us. And we do have a little gift for you out in the lobby, so make sure you stop out there and get that on your way out. We want to make sure that we can answer any of the questions that you might have and get you connected if you're ready. And for those of you online, make sure that you do log into that chat feature there. We want to say hello right there in that chat box and just make sure that you feel welcome as well. All the ways that we can get connected here. I know we talk about it all the time, and our winter and spring session is, it came to an end. So unfortunately, we don't have that regular weekly meeting, but we have a million other ways that you guys, a million's an exaggeration, but we have a lot of other ways that you guys can stay connected all throughout the summer. Women, we have some hikes, we have some book clubs. Men, you guys stole our idea with our LifePoint tables, but hey, that's okay. You can have your own little tables. But for the students, we have some fun game days available, but there's so many, and I don't have the time to list all of them. So make sure that you grab a flyer for that out at our Connection Center so that you can have all of that information. And back by popular demand, we do have our Parents' Night Out. You guys had a blast with that before, and so this is an opportunity that you can just dump your kids here with us. We'll make sure that they are safe and have a lot of fun, but you guys can have a night of going out to dinner, go to a movie, or just sit in peace in your house, whatever that looks like for you. Now, we will have a few little treats, some goodies for them, and of course, some games, but we do ask that you feed them their dinner before they come, or else they might be a little cranky when they leave, and we don't want to send home cranky kids to you. But we do ask that you register them for that event so we can have enough volunteers here to make sure your kids are safe for that entire night. I do mention the registering. You can do all of that through our app. I'm not sure if I mentioned that or not yet, or if you have the app, make sure that you get that downloaded, because that's where you can find all of the information for these events. And all of the seniors in the room, we do have another game night coming up. You guys seem to be really liking those. So we're going to have another game night this Saturday, and it's just a lot of fun that you can bring your friends. You can have some good fun, and I don't know if there's some competitions or if it gets a little ugly or not, but hey, have some fun, play your board games. It's a great time for you guys to be able to socialize and get together. Now, this is the time that we get to celebrate all of your generosity with your resources and time during our Go, Give, Serve, Love Projects Month in May. I did bring some numbers because there's some good numbers and I didn't want to mess them up. So you as a church came together and you pledged $52,000 towards our local and global missions budget. So good job, guys. Yeah, awesome. We had over 50 people who volunteered with our local strategic partners of Awaken, City of Refuge, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and our Northern Nevada Dream Center. Yeah, we had 21 dozen cookies baked for our teachers and firefighters. I wish I had some of those cookies. You guys came together and you raised over $500 for our Teacher Appreciation Week that you partnered with our FCA, our Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And you also collected bottles full of change for Life Choices. So amazing work, everybody. I am so grateful for your generosity of your time and your resources. And it just goes to show how much we care for the people in this community, and it gives us all the opportunity to share the love of Jesus Christ with everybody that we come in contact with. So thank you so much. And your generosity, wow, words are hard. Your generosity really is an example of what we believe here, and we believe that God has been so generous to us through his son, Jesus Christ, and it inspires us to then be generous right back to him. And everything that we think that we might have actually is God's already, so we know that you guys want to be generous, and we want to invite you into that. And so, giving, we believe, is a part of worship, just like the message and the music are. And so we invite you today to take part in giving as an act of worship towards the local church. And so, God loves a joyful giver, obviously. He loves when we can joyfully give towards each other and towards the local church. And so we hope that you ask God how you can joyfully give to LifePoint or any other local church so that you can be part of what God is doing in that local community. And so if you wanted to give, we have a couple different ways you can do that. You can give through the app, you can give online, you can give in the boxes in the back, and you can even mail it in if that's easy for you, or stop by the office during the week as well. You guys are just amazing. I am blown away by your generosity every time that we get to talk about it. So thank you in advance if you do decide to give. But if you wouldn't mind joining me back in our musical worship.
Thank you, Sarah. And before we start, I want to read from Proverbs 3, just some encouragement for us this morning. And it's, "Trust the Lord, my son, don't forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commands, for they will bring you many days, a full life, and well-being. Never let loyalty and faithfulness leave you. Tie them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will find favor and high regard with God and people. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and do not rely on your own understanding. In all your ways, know him, and he will keep your paths straight. Don't be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. This will be healing for your body and strengthening for your bones."
Here is where I lay it down. Every burden
that this is our surrender, that we lay down our lives for you to move, God. Thank you so much.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever sing. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show
gave your life for mine. Nailed to the cross, you crucified. All my sin and shame, it was washed by your mercy. You are the treasure I find, my reason for living. So let my life become an offering to the one who is worthy. All praise to the Lord Most High. All praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, my King of heaven, my King forever. You stormed the gates of my heart. The veil in between was torn apart. Now you hold the keys to the grave. 'Cause you bring things to life. You roll stones away. All praise to the Lord Most High. All praise to the one who saved my life. All
think the word that came to my mind was character.
Character.
What do you, like, what is that saying? Like, what are you when no one else is watching you? Who are you?
Like Jesus, it's to be meek. It's that strength and power in your meekness opposed to in your pride and everything else.
Be a man of God, be faithful, be truthful, be walking in the Spirit as best you can, be reliable, trustworthy.
Like just today I was talking to my stepson about making sure, like, hey, what's going on around you when there's no one else looking? Making sure that it's like just in the plain sense of making sure that you're guiding the next generation.
Nice. I remember at 12 years old, my dad had that conversation, when are you going to grow up and be a man? For me, it was probably midway through college. It was the first year I decided not to go home and be taken care of by mom and dad. I was going to be by my own. I went to sales school. I actually met God that summer. Just made all kinds of life changes that were all mine. So I had full control over I guess, me.
So I've had different times in my life where I've stepped up because of different things, and how I am as a man is correlated more to where I've grown or leveled up in my walk with Christ experiences. Am I the person that I want to be in my alone time, or is everyone seeing this side of me when really I've got this side that no one?
Morning, LifePoint. How we doing? Good, good. Man, I am so thankful that you are here today in the room. And if you're not and you're online, we love you. And I hope you enjoy today. But for those of you in the room, I'm excited you're here because it's gorgeous outside and that lake is calling. And you chose to be here with us to celebrate and worship. So we're so thankful. If you've been here a million times, you've been here for the first time, special welcome to you. We're diving into a new series and some cool things today, but most importantly, me. I'm excited to be on this stage today. I said this first service, this is not to garner appreciation or for you to take it easy on me today or anything, but it is my birthday today. Yes, thank you. I turned 33, and the beautiful thing is I get to do the thing that I feel most gifted in, the thing I love a ton, but I get to do it on my most favorite day. And that's one of the blessings that being on staff here and having a lead pastor who trusts me while he's gone and out of town to take the stage in his place and be on that team, and it's a massive blessing. If you don't know me, my name is Tyler Strickland. I'm our students director. It means I lead our 6th through 12th grade ministries. And a couple weeks ago, before the end of our semester, I sat down with both groups, Wednesday night with middle school, Sunday night with our high schoolers. I took a whiteboard and I just said, hey, we're going to answer this question tonight. This is the only thing we're going to do, and I'm going to ask you, what breaks your heart? And we sat for about an hour and a half, respectively, on each ministry, and I just filled this whiteboard with different phrases and words and things that break your students, our students' hearts. And the truth of the matter is, what breaks their heart is the exact same thing that breaks God's heart. And when I stepped back, I wasn't surprised that it was there. It was just cool to see that. And I'm excited for this next year when we get done with summer and we kick off in the fall to walk them through what it looks like to be aligned with the heart of God, because they're already there. And so it's just helping them to step into that. So it's a blessing to be able to serve them in that way. And so, my name's Tyler, and I get to work with students. And if you don't like what is said today, this email is not tyler.strickland@LifePoint. It's Kyle@LifePointNV. Just send it to him, and he will reprimand me on that back end of that. No, I'm excited to be here with you this morning. It's going to be a good day, and we are diving into a new series. Kicking off a brand new series today. We just wrapped up Bible in a Year last week, and we were jumping into what's called Making of a Man. Now, you hear that, and initially the guys are like, oh, okay, something, I can relate to that. And the ladies go, great, 5 weeks on masculinity, don't need that. But here's the beauty of it. We're taking what we believe manhood to be from a biblical perspective, and we're going to go through 5 weeks in 5 different categories. And the truth of it is none of those are exclusive to men. So ladies, lean in to this because these things are going to apply to you. We're just going to take a masculine voice for it. And the reality is men aren't made by themselves. It takes a community. And in a community, you will find men and women. So women, you play a key role in that as well. And so I hope these words are encouraging to you just as much as they are to the men in this room. And I hope they set a table for you with standards that say, hey, this is what I want, and I won't settle for less. So Today, we're talking about discipleship, and I've coined this to be called covered or collecting dust. So the series title or sermon title today is Collecting Dust, and what that looks like in the vein of discipleship. Now, here's the truth of the matter. The world needs more men. I think we can all agree to that. The world needs more men. But more importantly, the world needs more men who follow Jesus. So the world needs more men, we can agree, but to be honest with you, it doesn't need more men. It needs men who are willing to follow somebody, and that person is Jesus. And so our goal in this series is to encourage the men of this church and the women to be a better follower. And today we're kicking that off with the best way to do that. It's called being a disciple. And for this series, there are 3 critical pieces that I need you to understand. Now, women, I need you to get your date book out because there's going to be a date on here, and I'm going to need you to write it down because us dudes will forget that. And we are so thankful that you are gracious and remind us of things, even though it can be tiresome. So the first part of this is we want you to go on an adventure. We're going to be planning some different outings with other guys from the church. And the goal, guys, is to invite my personal invite to you to attend one of those. They'll be different. Some of them will be things like mountain biking or hiking. Some of them are going to be like watching maybe a UFC or a boxing match. Maybe it's just going and grabbing a bite to eat. If you really feel the need, you could sit around and do read a book together and go through it, however that looks like, but to go on an adventure. Now, this adventure is loose, right? It's not when everything goes wrong, we're going to bring you into it. But rather, it's time to socialize. It's time to hang out and meet other guys in the valley that are a part of LifePoint, and to invite other guys in the valley that aren't a part of LifePoint into LifePoint. The second one is to get in a group. We believe that men should be doing life together, and so we want to create those groups. Now, we don't really have a ton of that going on this summer because we're in a break, but the goal is that you'll build those relationships and then dive into a group in the fall when we kick off in September. And then the last part is to go on a retreat or go grow at retreat. And that's going to be October 11th through the 13th. We're going to Mount Hermon. It's a weekend men's retreat. It's going to be Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday morning, and we'll come back Sunday afternoon. Ladies, write this down, and if your husband's him-han, just send him away for that weekend. He'll be better for it. You'll be better for it. Your kids, if you have those, will be better for it because it is a chance to us to get away. And hopefully, as we've gotten in community together, we've built those friendships. We've grown together in a group that when we get to retreat, we are ready to dive deeper. And so these are the 3 kind of critical pieces of this series that we're going to encourage you to do. The question of the whole thing, though, is what makes a man? Like what makes a man? What is the things that make a man? Is it having a beard and being barrel-chested? That's my stature. That doesn't necessarily make me a man. It just makes me look masculine, right? Like that's not something that makes you a man. It could be a signature of a man. You could see a guy and be like, oh, it's probably a guy. You know, he's got a beard and barrel chest, but it doesn't make him a man. Is it drinking coffee black, getting up at 4 a.m.? You got to get up before the sun. You know, you got to get early bird gets the worm type feel. Maybe it's cold plunges and CrossFit. Those have been big things that have happened in the past, 10 years for dudes in the health industry. Is it manual labor? Maybe it's leading something, or it's the scholarship that you have and the books you read and the history you know. What are the things that make a man? And I think we were right. The reality is none of these things make you a man. I mean, they might be things that a guy does, but it doesn't, or has, but it's not what makes him a man. If we narrow in and we think a little bit deeper on this, I think the next question that logically comes up is, well, if we don't really know what makes a man, how do we know when we can say that you are a man? Like what makes a boy, or when does a boy become a man? Is it turning 18? My grandpa, I remember him telling me that was when he first felt like a man. He was drafted into the Vietnam War, and so he really didn't have a choice. It was like he had to put away childish things and he was going to fight a war. That kind of his step into being a man. Maybe it's getting their first knife or gun. I got my first pocket knife at the age of 6. Thank you, Dad. I got my first gun at the age of 9. Definitely not a man by any recognition of the word. Young kid, I was a child, but those things helped me become a man. It taught me discipline, taught me respect for others, it taught me safety, and those things helped form me into who I am today. But it wasn't like this defining me, like, oh, you've got your gun and your knife, now you're a man. Maybe it's the first time they have sex. Maybe it's their first job or when they get married. Now, I'd hope it's not when they get their first job or get married, because especially with the marriage thing, I hope that we have men that are stepping into marriage. Not boys who aren't ready to take on the responsibility of marriage, but a man who says, you know what, I'm not perfect at this, I'm not ready yet, but I know I will be, and I'm willing to make that sacrifice, and I'm willing to lead well. The reality is I don't think in our society we really know what makes a boy become a man. When I was 18, I think that the only thing that really signified being 18 was that I could buy cigarettes or some other things, lottery tickets or whatever. That didn't really make me a man. And the reality is when I got married, I felt like I was a man. I was, my early 20s. My wife would tell you that I was trying really hard, but I wasn't quite there yet. I was still on this journey. And I think the only thing that I can say with certainty is men are willing to lead something, but they're willing to follow somebody who's better than them at that. And I think that's one of the things that make a man. And what that thing is called, it's being an apprentice, or what we would say in church language, it's being a disciple. I think being a disciple is one of the pillars that make you a man, and the reason why is because you're willing to follow. Now, my question is, because this is a tricky word, how would you define that? Like, how do you personally define a disciple? I kind of gave you my answer for it. It's someone who's willing to be led, someone who's willing to follow, and in turn to become a better something, typically a better leader. But how would you define disciple? Now, if you've heard me teach before, and if you hear me teach in the future, two things I do well. I tell stories, and I'll give you a brief history lesson. Usually that history lesson is going to be something about ancient Israel, and the reason why it's ancient Israel is because that's what my degree's in. It's in biblical studies, and I love biblical history. And so ancient Israel, and specifically around the 1st century CE, the definition of a disciple was birthed out of their education system. And so little Jewish kids growing up in Israel at the time would go to Bet Sefer. This is their kindergarten, kind of early elementary. And they would be at Bet Sefer, which is just going to the synagogue and learning Torah, which is Genesis to Deuteronomy, okay? First 5 books of the Old Testament. It's known as the law. Torah is the Hebrew word for it. And it's for 4 to 5 years. Now, after that, most kids would do that. They would learn a little bit, and then they would leave, and they would go apprentice or be a disciple of their parent in their trade. And so little boys and girls would follow their mom or dad and be taught carpentry or how to being a repairman or how to be a shepherd or how to, be in agriculture, things like that. They would learn these things. They would apprentice from there on out. The second stage of it is Bet Talmud. Now, if you were a shining star in kindergarten through like 2nd, 3rd grade, you might have gotten invited into Bet Talmud. These were the promising young men, and they would be invited from ages about 10 to 15 to spend time in the synagogue learning further under a rabbi to memorize the books of Genesis through Malachi. We would call that our Old Testament. It's the story of Israel all the way up till Jesus comes back, or comes to earth for the first time. It's a story. It's their history. They would, but not just learning it, they would memorize it word for word. They'd be hiding it in their heart, we might say, so that they could spout it off at any time. And it was their way of rising up and learning more, and they would know the history intimately. And if you were really, really good and really, really smart, and people really liked you, 1% would get invited into the last level, and that's called Bet Midrash. Okay? And Bet Midrash, you'd become a disciple. You would be called to disciple under a rabbi. Now, a rabbi is just teacher or philosopher. And in ancient times, they would travel, and they would have disciples, people that would follow behind them and learn under them. And they would listen to them teach, and they would see how they would interact with people. And they would watch them grow over 3 to 4 years, and then eventually, if they were good enough, they'd be sent out to be rabbis of their own. But these men, young men, would follow these teachers. And these teachers they're not average guys that are just kind of out there doing the thing. These are their Michael Jordans. These are their Mark McGuire's, Albert Pulhoses. These are the guys that have got the posters on their wall. And they're like, I want to be that rabbi. And so young Jewish men would aspire to these, and they would hope they'd get called by one of them to follow. And they would follow so closely to these men that they would start to look like them. They would start to sound like them. They would teach in the way that they taught. Their thoughts would be influenced by these rabbis, and they would almost become a mirror image. And there's a phrase that was coined. It'd be that they followed so closely they would be covered in the dust of their rabbi. Now, it's ancient times. Rome hadn't fully started paving roads in Israel, so it was still dirt, countryside roads. And the dirt would kick up and it would create dust and that would cover them. Literally would be covered in the dust of their rabbi. Metaphorically, they had learned so much. And the reason why collecting dust is interesting is because you're going to collect dust one way or the other. You're going to be covered in dust one way or the other. You're going to be covered in dust because you didn't do anything, because you were sidelined, because you were stagnant. And if you think about it, like in a home, it's like dead skin cells that cover you. I don't want to be covered in that dust. That's nasty. And if you don't, you find the one spot you can't reach and you finally get to it with a little step ladder and you're like, that's gross. And you dust it out. It's stagnant. It's because you didn't get to it. They didn't do anything. It just sat there doing nothing. Or you can be covered in dust because you got up and did something, because you were active. Around here, you get covered in dust because you hike on these DG trails that we've got around here, and it's great. Like, feet get dirty. I wear Chacos when I go hiking sometimes, and I take them off, and I have a dust mark where the straps weren't, right? My feet are gross. Or you get covered because you're out biking, or maybe you're working in the garden. Maybe it's not the literal, maybe it's the metaphorical. Maybe you're covered in the dust because you have something you like studying, and so you read. Maybe it's paint, right? Maybe you're an artist and you love to work with clay or paint and you're doing these things, and you're covered in the medium that you're doing. Why? Because you're actively participating in something. And so disciples actively participate, and the beautiful part is, if you looked historically at these things, they had to be picked and they had to be special. And then comes Jesus. Jesus is a rabbi that never got past, never went further than Bet Sefer. We know this because he went and apprenticed under his father and became a carpenter. Jesus comes and he calls people to come follow him. He's a rabbi and he calls these people, but he didn't go through Talmud. He didn't follow another rabbi. Being God in human form, he didn't need to. And at a young age, he was already promising that he was outshining the people of his age that were in Bet Talmud at the age of 15 when he's teaching in the synagogues, and people are astounded by what he says. And that's where we're going to pick up today. We're in Luke 5. So if you have your Bible, New Testament, third book in. It's Luke 5, verses 4 through 11. Jesus arrives on the scene. He's been out teaching. He's in his 30s, early 30s. He's out teaching, and he's on a lake. And as he's teaching, there's crowds forming, and there's these boats, these fishing boats, because they go out and fish at night, and they come back in the morning. And there's a couple dudes, and they're sitting there, and they're repairing their nets. And they're listening as Jesus is teaching. And Jesus looks at them, and in verse 4, this is what he said. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Hey, put out into deep water and let down your nets for a catch." "Master, we have worked hard all night long, and we've caught nothing. But if you say so, I'll let down the nets." And when they did this, they caught a great number of fish, and their nets began to tear. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. And when Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and he said, "Go away from me, because I am a sinful man, Lord." And for he and all of those that were with him were amazed at the catch of fish that they had taken. And so were James and John, Zebedee's sons, who were Simon's partners. And notice how Jesus responds. Hey, don't be afraid. From now on, you're going to catch people. And then they brought their boats to the land. They left everything and they followed him. Peter, Andrew, James, John, partners in a fishing business. Gentlemen that never got further than Bet Sefer. Went and apprenticed under their fathers, learned the trade, out working all night. They were supposed to be masters of their craft at this point. No fish. Now, you've been there. We've all been there, right? You've been at work. You've been at home. You've been doing the thing that fills the majority of your time during the day, and it's not working. The report's not being sent off right. This person has called you 15 times for clarification. Maybe you work in a trade, and you're trying to get a bolt off, and it won't, so you have to liquefy it with a torch, because if it's liquid, it can't be seized anymore. And you're waiting patiently, and you're going, I've been at this all day. I'm home. I do not want to deal with it anymore. That's where Peter and Andrew, James, and John are at. We've been out all night fishing. What do you mean, go out and let down the nets? All right, if you say so. They throw down the nets, and all of a sudden, the nets that they were trying to repair start to tear. They can't get it with one boat. They call over James, John, hey, come help us, we need it. They fill both the boats, and they start to sink as they're getting them back to shore. And then Peter, before Jesus says anything to him, go away. Go away. I am sinful. I do not need to be around you. I don't deserve to be around you. Go away. And what does Jesus say? Hey, I'm not worried about your fear. I'm not worried about your doubt. I'm not worried about your insecurity. I want you to come follow me because I will make you into something. You will go catch men. You're not very great at catching fish, apparently, so I'm going to teach you how to do something better. Here's the reality. Jesus does not call qualified people. He doesn't. He never has. Look at all of biblical history. Not a one person that Jesus has called was qualified. He doesn't call qualified people. He qualifies the people that he calls. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is we aren't able to do it without him. We need him to do it. Look at Moses. Moses is out tending to sheep, comes across a burning bush in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the wilderness. At that point, I'm freaking out. Like, that thing is not, it's on fire, but it's not burning up. And he hears the audible voice of God. Moses, you're going to go to Pharaoh. You're going to tell him to let my people go, and you're going to tell him that the I am sent you. Yeah, I've got a stutter. I can't do that, right? Rebuttal. I'm not qualified. I can't do that. I'm not going before Egypt's king to try and tell him, like, he thinks he's a god. You want me to go tell him that a god from a burning bush sent? I can't do that. Jacob, a liar, a thief, wrestles with God all night, gets his name changed to Israel. He has 12 sons. The whole nation of Israel is birthed out of his familial line. But he never felt qualified, and so he ran. Time and time again in the Bible, we see this. We get to Peter. Before he's ever asked, rebuttals. And meanwhile, Jesus stands there and is like, I didn't ask. Because I know. I know that you are not qualified. But I'm going to make you qualified. And the definition of qualified is interesting. And as I was studying for this sermon, I looked it up. I was like, what does it actually mean? What does the Merriam-Webster dictionary say about this? And this is the definition. And it becomes a dichotomy. And if you're not sure what a dichotomy is, it means it contrasts. Two separate definitions for one word, but they contrast. The first one is officially recognized as being trained to perform a particular job, right? So if you work in the trades, you had to be a journeyman, an apprentice and a journeyman, and then you maybe worked for somebody, you started your own business, but you had to go learn how to do the thing. And then you could go do it. It's for most all professions. Any job you do, they train you. What's funny is one of the ones they don't train you to do is to be a parent, right? Now, I'm not a parent, but I've been parented. And I've heard from my parents on good authority, and they're actually here today, which is really fun, that you don't know how to be a parent until you do it. You kind of learn, it's like learning on the job. And that brings me to the second one. It just means you're not complete or absolute. I went to college. I have a degree that says I'm qualified to stand on this stage and teach because that's what I learned. It means I have biblical knowledge and historical knowledge of the Bible, but it's not what makes me up here. It doesn't keep me on this stage. I'm not actually qualified to be on the stage because I'm not really complete or absolute. It's the same thing as being a parent or being a friend. You don't really know how to be a friend until you are one. That's what following Jesus is. Not a single one of us are qualified to follow him because he wants to qualify us as he brings us along. Now, Peter had his rebuttals. Moses had his. Everyone else in history has. And the reality is our rebuttals to following God tend to fall in these three categories. It is either fear, it's doubt, or insecurity. And if you've been in counseling at all, you know that fear, doubt, and insecurity, they all kind of intermix. The reality is fear is because of something insecure that it manifests in fear. Doubt is you're insecure about something and it manifests as doubt. The insecurity is the thing that sits deep inside of us that nags at us that says, we cannot do this. I can't do this because of X, Y, Z. So even if we have the degree, it's called imposter syndrome. We have the degree, we have the knowledge, we have the experience, but there's still times we don't feel ready to do what we need to do. It's insecurity. And the best part about that is Jesus calls us anyway, and we still want to give him the rebuttal. I can't follow you. I'm not good enough. I can't follow you. I yelled at my wife, and I'm angry towards my kids. I can't follow you because I don't know enough about you. And Jesus is like, of course you don't. You haven't spent any time with me. Of course you don't. You're broken. And I love you anyway. When I was 17, I grew up in church, was in youth group, and I remember the first time I got asked to stand on a stage and teach. Now, this wasn't like a 5-minute, 10-minute devotion in front of my peers. This was a middle school ministry of about 75 students. And I was 17 and never taught for more than 10 minutes at a time. And my middle school youth pastor at the time looked at me and was like, hey, you've helped me build this thing. It's time you step up and take the stage and teach. And I had imposter syndrome terribly. I was like, ooh, all right. I don't have any practice in this. I don't know what I'm doing. Sure, I'll do it. Why not? Now, I've been told that I could teach. I've been told I had some gifting, but I didn't really believe it because I hadn't done it yet. I hadn't had any training, and I was like, maybe when I go to Bible college and I take some classes on preaching and I learn a bit more, then I'll be ready. And Titus is like, no, it's now. It's the time. Start. Because you need to fail. You need to learn. You need to be coached. And so he puts me on stage, and I was so nervous, and I didn't know what to do. So I listened to a sermon that I had heard at a camp that summer that I had bought the audio for because I really liked it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to teach what that guy taught. Now, I'm not a singer, okay? I don't sing well. I like to sing, but it's not pretty. And anyone I've talked to that can sing or has taught and trained singers has said, in order to become a good vocalist, you have to find the person who you can mimic, and then you find your own voice through that. That was what I was trying to do. I was like, well, I like how this guy taught. I like the how he put a spin on it and things like that. So I'm just going to mimic him. But instead of mimicking him, I just wrote down word for word what he had said, and I just did that with a couple changes because I couldn't tell his story. It wasn't my story, so I kind of told part of mine in it. But I taught middle schoolers for 45 minutes. I was so nervous. I went 45 minutes. If you know middle schoolers, you get 10, 15 tops. And I went 30 over that. And I walked off the stage, and it was great. It felt so great to do that, to stand on the stage and teach, but I wasn't qualified to do that. I had no knowledge of it. But I had coaching, and it was beautiful. And I could have sat there and been like, Titus, I'm not ready for this. I don't have the and instead, I just trusted someone who had been there, who had done it way more than I had and had that knowledge, to say, come follow me, and I'm going to teach you what to do. We can give our rebuttals all day long. The truth is, if we do not submit ourselves to someone that has done it before us, if we're not willing to humble ourselves and learn, we're sitting stagnant, and we're going to get covered in the dust we don't want to be covered in. Because the reality is that disciples are covered in dust. Disciples are covered in dust. There is no in between. There is no if, ands, or buts. Disciples are active. They get up. They get out there. They try. They fail. And they learn. And so this morning we're talking about collecting dust. We talked about being stagnant, what that looks like. But here on out, we're going to talk about what it looks like to be in the game. We're going to talk about what it looks like for disciples to be covered in dust. And I think Paul says it best in 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 9, 26 through 27 is, so I do not run like one who runs aimlessly or box like one beating in the air. My little sister used to make fun of me because I did martial arts growing up. And when I would be outside, I would just randomly shadow box. And then it carried in. My wife likes to make fun of me for it. But it's like aimlessly beating the air because there's no opponent. And yeah, I'm learning and I'm perfecting my jabs and whatnot, but it's aimless. There's really no point to it. Instead, I discipline my body and I bring it under strict control so that after preaching to others, I myself will not be disqualified. I don't do things aimlessly. I don't run around like a madman. Like when you're training for something, right? You get a regiment, you follow it, you start dieting, you do the things you need to do. I was a college athlete, we had diets, we had practices, we had training. If you're an artist or an author, if you write for a living, if you aren't writing 500-600 words a day, you're not mastering and honing your craft. You don't have any discipline. You're being aimless. Good writers write prolifically. Great artists paint and draw and scribble prolifically. Mechanics who build things, fix things, they're constantly looking for what is this new part? They study it, they're learning. You know this because you all have jobs, and you see the ones that excel. They're the ones that are just naturally good at it, or they've put that discipline in. There's no natural talent's great, but it doesn't get you very far. You got to be disciplined. You got to learn it. You got to push yourself. You bring your body under strict control. So that after you can put whatever you want in here. So that after leading people well. So that after loving people well. Paul was preaching, he was teaching to people. That's what I love doing that. So for me, preaching works. For you, that might be something a little different. So that after you do that thing for others, you, me, will not be disqualified. And there's that word. It's got a little 3 letters on the front of it, but qualified. And the truth of this is, I have disqualified myself over the past 16 years from the first time I taught, which was actually 16 years ago next Sunday, over and over and over again. Because discipline isn't my strength. And to be honest, it's really not any of our strengths, because if discipline was a strength, it's a natural habit. You don't have to have it, you're just good at it. If you want to grow, you want to be in something, you want to continue to progress, you've got to discipline yourself so that you're not disqualified. My wife and I just got back from vacation, but a couple days before that, I had had a long day at work and come home, and she'd had a long day as well, and she said something, and it caught me off guard, and I was frustrated already, and I yelled at her. It's sinful. It's broken. I didn't love my wife well. I didn't lead well. I disqualified myself. The difference there is that I repented, that I went to God and said, hey, this is not what you've asked me to do. This is not how you've made me to be. This is not the person that I'm trying to become. Will you forgive me? And I had to go to my wife, and I had to ask for forgiveness there, and I'm thankful for a gracious wife who loves me and serves me, even when I don't do that well for her. But we've all been there. We've disqualified ourselves over and over again. Maybe you messed up. You used the wrong color. You got to figure out how to balance the colors out in the painting. Maybe you're trying to loosen a bolt that snapped, and then you have to drill it out. You've failed in some way. But did you break the bolt and walk out of your job? No. Did you forget to pick your kids up from school and then just go, well, guess they're not my kids anymore? No, you got there, you apologized, you owned it, and you continued to go and you grew. Because discipline is not, it's not the thing that says, hey, I'm just rigid and I can't do anything other than this. Discipline says, I'm willing to be flexible and learn and fail 1,000,000 times and get up 1,000,001. Disciples have discipline. Following Jesus is a journey. We're on it every single day. We continue to walk. We will fail 100 times. Jesus will look at us and say, get up. Because the 101st time's coming, and we've got work to do, and I'm still here. Disciples are covered in dust because they are active participants in what they do. And they have discipline because that's what it takes to get through. And I'm not talking about the hardcore, I get up at 4 a.m. every day, I eat a smoothie, and it's got exactly 12 blueberries in it, and they're exactly the size of, a marble, and all these things. No, that's not the discipline I'm talking about. I'm talking about the willingness to continue to pick yourself back up. And it's tough, and it's not easy. The discipline I had when I was learning to teach was that I did it that first time, and I remember it was the first time I kind of felt like I wasn't a kid anymore, and that I wasn't quite a man yet, but I was kind of in this in-between stage where I was learning, and I remember because I think it was Father's Day that year, and I remember my dad standing in the backyard, and he's grilling, and he was like, hey man, I'm super proud of you, and I wish that I had that same gifting. And I'm so thankful that God has given that to you and that you're willingly doing it. And I remember talking to my mom about it, and she was like, you went 45 minutes, but I love you. You're my son, and I'm very, very proud of you. And it was this moment in my life where that pivot, and I started to put away childish things, and I was like, no, this is my path. This is where he's called me. What was that for you? What does that look like for you? When did the childish things get put away, and when did you start putting on discipline and getting active in what you're supposed to be doing with your life? And if you're not there yet, that's okay, because you can make that decision today. You can start right now. You can literally start right now. Hey, I'm doing this now. This is where I'm at. And it doesn't have to be full steam ahead. You're going to start slow, because you can't go out and run a marathon tomorrow unless you've been training for it. Disciples have discipline. And the beautiful part is the reason we are disciplined is because calling matters. And Jesus' call, we don't get that face-to-face. I didn't have a face-to-face encounter with Jesus when he said, hey, go speak to Pharaoh. Hey, I'm going to birth a nation out of you. It'll be as numerous as the stars in the sky. Hey, go catch men instead of fish. I didn't get that. We don't get that. But here's what we do get. Right before Jesus was to ascend back into heaven, this is after he had been arrested, crucified, and had resurrected. It's kind of the last conversation he has with his disciples. It's in Matthew 28. He's gathered the followers. There's a bunch of them around. And he's kind of given his last words. And this is the calling that echoes from 2,000 years ago to the church now, to us in this room right now. And the beautiful part is it said some of them doubted. I mean, they had seen Jesus die and come back to life, do exactly what he said he was going to do. They knew the hope that was coming, and yet they still doubted that this is what they were supposed to do. It says this, it says, go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything that I have commanded of you. And remember that I am always with you to the end of the age. They doubted. Thomas felt the scars, the holes in his hand, and the spear puncture in his side, felt these things with his own hand. Jesus materialized in front of him, and he still doubted. Spent 3 years with a man, following him, being covered in his dust, learning to be like him, do the things that he did, following him as a disciple, being disciplined and learning, and he still doubted, and yet Jesus still sends him out. And here's why. Go do all these things. Go baptize people. Teach them to observe everything that I have taught you. And know this, that I am with you always, even till the very end of the age. I'm not qualified to stand on the stage because I went to school, because I have a gifting, because I'm encouraged to and trusted by our teaching team and lead pastor and our elders to be on this stage. It's not why I'm up here. It's not what qualifies me to be here. The only thing that qualifies me to be here is that Jesus has given me a calling and I've answered, and it says that I am with you always until the very end of the age. Peter and the disciples at Pentecost, this is the very beginning of Acts, okay? It's a holiday. There's a ton of people gathered in Jerusalem. They're sitting in an upper room, and they're waiting. Jesus has already ascended into heaven. They've been given this ask, this command of Jesus, hey, go do this, and I'm with you. And they're like, well, how are you going to be with us? And Jesus talked openly. He's like, I've got this gift I'm going to give you. It's important that you know what this gift is, because I'm going to give it to you, and when you come, you're going to do greater things than I've ever done. And they're sitting in this room going, you've called us to go do this. We have no idea what we're supposed to do. And then a wind blows through. A little cross breeze kind of feel. And they get overwhelmed with this sense of worth and this sense of capability, not because they're able to do it, because something inside them is pulling them to something greater. It's the Holy Spirit. It's that third part of the Trinity. It's God in spirit, and he's filling them, saying, hey, I will help you do this. You can't do it on your own. I can't do it on my own. I couldn't get up here and do this because I'm still reeling over the fact that I don't lead my wife well sometimes, that I struggle with anger and frustration, that honestly, when people cut me off, my first instinct isn't to throw them a peace sign, but it's to remove one of those fingers. Like that's an inner turmoil that I have, and I have to deal with it. It disqualifies me. If I held on to that, if I kept that at the forefront, I would never stand on this stage. I would never be able to lead your students. It disqualifies me every time, but this is what keeps me there. Because when I fall down, Jesus reaches down and says, come on, you got work to do, kid. We're not done yet. And I repent and I continue to follow him because it's a journey. The reality is they're at Pentecost. They walk out. There's these tongues of fire above their head. I imagine it like the light bulb in like a Tom and Jerry. You know, it's like he's like cooking and he gets the idea and it goes bing, but the fire instead of a light bulb. And they go out. And there's 3,000 plus people gathered, and Peter stands up with the 12, and he starts teaching, and he gives the first gospel-centered message ever given. 3,000 men and their families are baptized that day. And they start following Jesus, and they go and they do something, and they start making more disciples. And the church explodes, and it grows, and it catches on fire, and it does amazing things, none of them being qualified. But it was because Jesus was with them that they did it. The truth is, disciples are covered in dust because they follow something bigger than themselves. They're disciplined. They're willing to get up and continue to go even when they fail. And disciples make more disciples. Disciples make more disciples. We're called to do this. This calling was not just for the 12. It wasn't for the early church. It echoes to now. It's not for me and Pastor Kyle and Pastor Fred and Pastor Roy and the rest of the staff here at LifePoint. It's personal. And it's aimed at every single person that looks at Jesus and said, I will follow you. Peter, James, John. Jesus dies, comes back to life. They don't know what to do. And Peter goes back, he's like, you know what? I'm going fishing. Never had any luck at it, apparently, because anytime we see him fishing in the Bible, he never catches anything. But that's what he wants to go back to. Miraculous things happen. He goes back to fishing. They're out on the lake. They've been out all night. And guess what? They didn't catch anything. Nothing. And there's somebody standing on the shore and, hey, you catch anything? Nope. Been at it all night. Not a thing. Tell you what, throw your nets down on the right side of the boat. Whatever. They throw them out, and the boat starts to tip. And Peter, instead of helping them, realizes it's Jesus, stands up, dives in the water, and swims to the shore. And he has this beautiful conversation where Jesus is like, why'd you go back? I told you, you're not going to fish like this anymore. I mean, hobby, feed yourself, cool. But I've asked you to go do something. I need you to go do it. Folks, he's asked us to go do something, and we need to go do that. So disciples make more disciples. So practically, how do we talk about this? What does this mean? Well, remember, Jesus doesn't call qualified people. Not a one. He never has. He never will. Because the only thing that qualifies us, the only thing that makes you a man is that the fact that you are willing to follow him. So some practical next steps for you. First thing I want you to do is get dirty following Jesus. Get your hands dirty. There's this old audio adrenaline song. I want to be your hands. I want to be your feet. I want to go where you send me. And that's where I got this. Get dirty following Jesus. Because with the concert, he was like, y'all ready to get your hands dirty following Jesus? Yeah, we all shouted because we're, kids and it's fun. But get dirty following Jesus. The first thing some of you need to do is just say yes to following Jesus. Maybe you don't know him. Maybe you're far from him. Maybe you've known him prior, but you've walked away and you're coming back. Just say yes to following Jesus. And it's really simple. Just say this simple prayer. Jesus, I haven't been following you, but that changes today. And I choose to accept your invitation. I have prayed this prayer so many times. I prayed it this morning on my way here. I will pray it 100 million more times before I die. And hopefully that's not at 33 like Jesus, but I get to live a long life. But it's simple. Whether you've been here for 25 years, or it's your first Sunday, say yes to Jesus. Accept his invitation and get your hands dirty. Be active participants. The second thing to do is that you will get further in life. You'll get further in following Jesus with discipline. Get further with discipline. What that looks like, practically, join a group. Go on an adventure and join a group, and then go to retreat with us. But join a group. Get into a group of people that are going to pull you along. I tell your students this all the time. I tell our students, not just yours, but our students. The friends you have right now will dictate where you're going to be in life. Because if your friends are the ones that are constantly getting in trouble and getting you in trouble, what's going to happen is you're going to end up at the wrong place at the wrong time, and the wrong thing is going to happen to you. The people you choose to put in your life will either get you further or pull you further away from where you need to be. My encouragement, get a group and surround yourself with people who are going to push you further. The people that I want to surround myself with, that Kayla and I have decided these are the people we want to do life with on a regular basis, are the ones that are pushing us further. The ones that are able to encourage us and love us through the difficult times, that are celebrating with us, that push us further. And the third thing is this. Get busy making disciples. This week, identify one person who you're going to invest in. In the valleys, Reno, Tahoe area, this whole part, there's about 645,000 people, give or take. 1% of that is churched. You throw a rock, you're going to hit 100 people or more that don't know Jesus. It's just the beauty of, it's kind of the beauty of where we live. We get the opportunity to get busy making disciples because there's not a lot of people that know Jesus in this area. So my encouragement to you, and you know them because you work with them, you're friends with them, you see them outside of this building. Who are you inviting? And guys, who do you know in your life that need to hear this sermon? That need to hear and be a part of this series, that need to go on an adventure, that need to join a group, that need to go on retreat because they need to, one, say yes to Jesus, and they become an active participant in what he's called us to do. And some of y'all been sitting in these chairs for a while. And we just had Easter not too long ago, and we did a bunch of baptisms. And this isn't to shame you, but how many of those baptisms did you have a hand in? Like, how many of those people do you know that you were like, man, I got to invest in that person? It's not to shame you, it's to encourage you. Like, get busy making disciples. The harvest is plentiful in these valleys. We could change the face of Northern Nevada for the gospel if we were willing. And all it takes is identifying one person that you're going to invest in, that you're going to have those conversations with. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I love you guys and for listening. And I hope this was encouraging. I hope it was, for me, this is such an exciting thing to do. And I love doing this, and I hope you were able to lean in and feel some of that too. Next thing for you, guys, ladies, I need you to listen and write down this because we're going to forget it. The next thing I've got for you, hey, men's tables. We've kind of borrowed the idea from the ladies because you all do things a little bit better than we do around here sometimes. Is a connecting conversation, LP Men's Tables. This is June 22nd, Saturday morning. It's towards the end of this month. At 8:30 a.m. We're going to be on campus. We're going to feed you breakfast. I've heard there's going to be axe throwing, maybe some golf, cornhole, things like that. Pastor Kyle is going to share a piece of encouragement. And the beautiful part about this is, ladies, if your guy doesn't want to go to that and you're in town, just send him anyway. He'll be better for it. Because we want to hang out with him. We want to get to know him. And so my invite to you is that I'm saving you a seat, and I want to see you there. 8:30 a.m., June 22nd. It'll probably be over towards the Family Center, but it'll be a great time. I'd love to see you there. You are already blessed in Christ. Thank you so much for being here. We love you. Come back next week and hear about stewardship.